Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, I don't know about you guys, but I think dandelions are a very unappreciated flower, and they're quite amazing. They're a very robust flower. Some may call them a weed. Many may call them a weed. They have several stages. The first stage when they're the yellow flower, very pretty. Does it look like a lion? Is that any relation to the name? I don't know. And then you've got the seed stage, when you have the seed parachutes. And what other flower is more fun for a kid than a dandelion? And really, if you think about it, that's such a cool way to spread its seeds. I mean, forget the birds, you know? Forget depending on the bees. No, they go it alone and do it in a really extreme way, with seed parachutes, sending their progeny off, their potential progeny off on an aerial adventure. Pretty cool. I think we all should appreciate the dandelion a little more, for real. I think if I ever had a small plot of land, I think it'd be nice to have just an area just chock full of dandelions. Although if you had that, you'd have dandelions everywhere. Your small patch would become, in no time, a huge patch. But that attests to the robustness of the dandelion. And my daughter agrees. She loves them as well. Sophie, what do you think? Here, come here. Do you like dandelions? Yeah? Can you say dandelion?
Dandelion.
Can you show me one? Where's a dandelion? All right, so hanging out with my younger daughter today. My older daughter and my wife are at another park with my daughter's classmates and friends and other mothers, so I wasn't invited to that, being a dad, which, you know, I can kind of understand that if there's this, you know, one lone dad, sort of throws off the female vibe and the mother vibe. So yeah, they're doing their own Hanami today, and Sophie and I are here doing our little Hanami walk. And as you can see, you know, at this particular park, the Hanami are, you know, at their peak. So it really kind of depends on the park. We were at a park the other day, and once the cherry blossoms start to grow leaves, it's a totally different look, and the petals fall off, and you don't get that fluffy look that is so characteristic of Hanami. All right, so yesterday's video was surprisingly well received. Maybe the Speedmaster folks haven't found it yet, but I thought I'd make a follow-up video and talk about sort of my impressions of chronographs and talk about the Daytona a little bit, and talk a little bit more about the Speedmaster, because there is a lot to love about that watch, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So first, let's talk about the Speedmaster. Okay, so the Speedmaster, of course, the current ones are operated by a cam lever, and the original, the 321, was, as you guys know, a column wheel. And I guess the question is, which is better? And I don't think it's that simple, but from what I gather from my research, seems that a cam is a more simple operation, and in that sense, if there's less to go wrong, perhaps it's more robust and a watch with more longevity between services. Probably a easier watch to service, and so in that sense, I guess taking care of it could be possibly cheaper. Hopefully Omega passes on that savings to us. I don't know that it does, but I think column wheel apparently is sort of a more complex movement, and servicing it is a bit tougher. Operationally, it appears that the column wheel is a more pleasurable experience. The pushers don't stick apparently like they do on cam-driven chronographs. So in terms of the user experience, I think the column wheel is the way to go. Column wheels are beautiful. If you've ever seen the back of a Daytona, case back open, it's amazing. It's gorgeous, and that's probably one of the pluses of a column wheel. I think it's a more beautiful movement, but that's kind of lost on the Daytona. We'll get into that in a little while, but so I suppose they both have their advantages and disadvantages. You have to wonder why Rolex uses a column wheel, and is it better? I mean, again, operationally, that could be the reason right there. It's just more pleasurable experience to push those buttons on a column wheel. So I can see Rolex saying, hey, it costs more, it's harder to service, but it's a more pleasurable experience, and that's what we're going to go with. And Rolex, I don't think, has ever been known to scrimp as far as making a movement, going for the easier option if it means a less pleasurable experience tactily, or some other they don't I think they don't look at the cost, or they don't look at the sort of the servicing factor. That's probably passed on to the customer, and I think they look at sort of, which would you rather have? Which would you rather push? A cam-driven one or a column wheel? And so that's perhaps why they go column wheel, even though it's gonna up the cost and servicing it's more difficult. And the Speedmaster, look, there's perhaps a lot of savings there that does get passed on to the customer. And if it was a column wheel, they perhaps would go for more. And one of the beauties of a Speedmaster is they're so my daughter's pushing me out of the way, is they're really, at least on the secondhand market, they're pretty good values. And I think part of that has to do with the cost to produce them, but a lot of it has also to do with the fact that there are a lot of them out there. And I remember going to Ueno, which is an area of Tokyo. This is probably in 2016, and just I saw a ton of watches, I saw a ton of Rolexes, but there was this cabinet that was just sort of chock full of Speedmasters, and the idea of picking one would have been daunting because there were probably 30 there, and they were just kind of all sitting in this cabinet, and you could see that a lot of people wanted to get rid of them. There were a lot of people that I guess walked into that shop with one on their wrist and wanted to get rid of it. So because they produce them so much, that could be the reason that they're relatively cheap on the used market. I think I could probably get one for 300,000 yen, $3,000, I want to say. Of course, Joma shop, that's an option for a new one. And I hesitate to say that's because it's cam. I think it's because of the production and the huge amount of production that Omega has on those watches. And again, it would be, I don't know if, they could pump out column wheels, but it probably would be a little tougher. And so, how are you doing? Are you good? Doing well? Yeah. Here, let me just, Sophie, are you making the rounds? Are you doing good? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. We're talking chronographs here. So, anyway, so yes, that's a huge plus of the Man on the Moon. I mean, it's a great sort of starter luxury piece, and buying your first luxury watch is sort of a daunting experience, and to be able to buy one for $3 or $4 grand is, it helps work your way up to something. You don't want to start off buying a $7,000 watch. I mean, I guess you could. Can you do it? Here we go. All right, you want to do the last one by yourself? Okay, so the Speedmaster, you can get in on the luxury watch thing for relatively low cost, and it's kind of a cool function that you can sort of play with. You can always sort of time things and press the button and stop the timing hand and have it fly back, and that's kind of neat. And it offers sort of a level of interactivity that something like a date just doesn't, or something like this. So I imagine it would be a great watch, a perfect watch for like a young guy just starting out, and he doesn't want to go, say, GMT straight off the bat. Sort of wants to ease into it, and you do have that historical relevance, and it's almost surprising that they are as cheap as they are. But again, yes, it's thanks to the fact that Omega doesn't pull a Rolex and doesn't withhold production to keep the value. They just pump them out. Yeah, do you want to sit? Go ahead, you can have a seat. And so that's. Do you want me to sit down? Well, okay, I'll kind of. Here we are. It's a nice seat you found. So let's talk a little bit about the Daytona. Now, I think it's a shame that the Daytona doesn't have a display case back. And I think if it did, they'd sell more, because I think people would love to see that movement. But, Rolex, I guess, doesn't really care about that. And, you got to wonder why they just never use display case backs. I mean, I guess that's another video. I guess they're not as strong and they don't keep water out as well. And perhaps that's the reason. If it's something like a sub, you don't really need to see the movement of a sub, because I think that's pretty utilitarian. I'd still like to see it, but I can understand that there's going to be it's not going to be as strong as the case back that they use for a sub. And with a sub, you do need to think about the water resistance, because that's sort of what it's known for, and you can't the last thing you want is a watch potentially shattering due to water pressure. I know it's unlikely, but hey, it's you can't really mess around with that. But and then I guess if you were to have a display case back on, say, a Explorer 2 or a Datejust, I don't know, you don't have that consistency. But it would be kind of nice to have it on a Daytona, and why not? Well, I think one other reason is it's I mean, it's a functional tool watch, and it's sort of like, I think putting a display case back is sort of an admission that you're not using it the way it's meant to be used as a tool watch, and not as, you know, something to take off your wrist and gaze on. This is a tough tool watch meant to be put through its paces and used. And it's funny because so many of the tool watches are not bought without purpose anymore, but Rolex still, it's still marketed as a tool watch. Do you hear that dog? Yeah, it's barking. My daughter loves dogs and cats. And I think to put a display back on it, it's going to make it a degree less tough, and all of a sudden the tool watch aspect is sort of called into question. Even with the Datejust, I mean, look, a Datejust is a tool watch in sort of dress watches clothing, and I guess if you want a display back, there's the Cellini line. I want to say the Cellini lines. It's a good question. I don't know. I'm gonna have to Google that when I get home. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Cellini line has display case back, because that's sort of the sort of hot horology attempt by Rolex. And so I can imagine them saying, look, I mean, if you want to have a tool watch, have your tool watch, and if you want to have the beautiful, fine, you know, horological piece with the display back and the beautiful thing, I mean, that I imagine that would be sort of the angle that they aim for with Cellini. And it's interesting. I don't know if Cellini has see-through case backs. If they do, I'm not surprised, and if they don't, I am surprised, because that sort of is I think what that line is sort of aimed towards, sort of the Rolex's answer to, you know, these fancy watches that are more art than function, more form than function, yet still functional. Yes, you want to go home? Okay, all right, let's go home. Let me just kind of come down here and all right, we'll go home soon. I've got my little guitar here. I didn't play much today, but yeah, we'll go home. All right, sort of switch arms, and as we walk back, sort of wrap up this video. The Daytona is an incredibly popular watch here in Japan, and you see it a lot. And I have a feeling that what happens, and I've got to sort of preface this by saying that most Rolexes here are seen as luxury, and they're, you know, a businessman will buy a Rolex as like a status symbol. And so what I think happens, you know, I think that they probably would take their watches off when they swim. Well, maybe not a sub, but Rolex here is sort of, it's full on luxury, and I don't even think that many people here are sort of aware of you know, the tool watch aspects of Rolex. And look, this is not, I'm not saying this about the people that work at the watch shops and the people that are into horology here, and there are people that are into horology. I'm talking about your typical, whoa, no, yes, bird poop, yuck, let's not touch that. I'm talking about people, you know, on the train, guys on the train that work in an office and they've got themselves a sub, and they just know. They know a Rolex is a luxury watch, and they know that it probably has some dive watch DNA, but anyway, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. So what I think happens is you know, the guy goes into Rolex and checks out the subs and checks out the steel sports watches. And somewhere during that interaction, the person behind the counter says, well, you know, the sort of cream of the crop steel sports Rolex is the Daytona. It's the most expensive. It's the movement is special. And, you know, you look at the dial, and I'm more of a minimalist, but for many people, a dial with so many bells and whistles kind of looks cool, and I imagine it looks you know, I mean, a lot more sort of high tech and than something like you know, a sub. So you're a little bit too young for that. Okay, yeah, I don't think she can quite handle this. Yeah, you want to go up the stairs? Okay, here, come, let's go up the stairs. So what I think happens is somewhere along the line, during that interaction, the Daytona is presented, and you know, it's the most expensive steel piece there. And if the person's got the money, they're probably going to go for it because that's I mean, it's a high status piece. And you know, when you see one of these pieces on the train, I mean, you know, a person paid at least $15,000 for that. They're really expensive, even used. So it's I mean, anybody with a Daytona on their wrist, that's some serious status. And I think that's really the reason that they're so popular here. You know, it's not as functional, and I don't think a lot of these guys probably use the function. I know I wouldn't use it very often. I'd much prefer having other functions and just the date. And, you know, a simple date just, I think, would be more functional. But you do have that fuck off factor, if you will. What do you got there? Is it a rock? Okay, all right. You want to finish climbing up? Just got 2 more steps to go. Will I ever go chronograph? Well, if I did, I probably would go Omega. But strangely enough, I prefer the what do they call it? The Sapphire Sandwich. Because you can see the movement, and because it's got the automatic movement, and I prefer that. I love the sort of the relationship you have, you know, with your body with an automatic. I'm not much on winding watches. I like the size more, and also you have the you know, it's going to be tougher. Can I have your hand? Hand, please. Sophie, why don't you go up? Why don't you go up? Go up and slide. Backing down stairs is probably not the wisest decision. Go up and slide. Can you go up? Finish going up. Now you got 3 more steps. Can you go up? So I probably would go Speedmaster if I went chronograph, but I don't know if I ever will go chronograph. But you know, Speedmaster, I mean, they're kind of deals. So if anything drew me in, it would be that cheap price. As far as a Daytona goes, and by the way, I love the ceramic Daytona. That's one of the new models that I really do like. I'm not crazy about the polished middle links, but I much prefer the. I'm coming. But I much prefer the bezel of the. That's where I think the Cerachrome works well. So I prefer the new Daytona to the old Daytona. And the new Daytona, boy, they're tough to get, and they're expensive. What, $25,000? Yeah, let's go up it. Well, do you want to go? All right, let's switch hands. But would I ever go Daytona? No, I don't think I would, and I'll tell you why. Because very expensive, and a function that. Okay, well, let's go up together. Oh, there goes the guitar. Very, very expensive and a function that that I don't have much use for. So it would essentially be paying more for less. But again, it's got that fuck off factor. You know, I've always talked about not settling. Hold on, Sophie, wait for me. And so because I'm not one that likes to settle. Here, can you hold on right here? All right. Because I'm not one who likes to settle, I would have reservations going for the steel bezeled vintage Daytona. Because I like the new Daytona so much, but the new Daytona is just, that's crazy money right there. I mean, you guys know my sort of sweet spot is about $5,000. That's when I feel like I appreciate a watch enough, and it's not too expensive and not too cheap, and it's expensive enough to appreciate, but cheap enough that I can kind of justify it. But you know, $25,000, that's insanity. So I'd have to really come into some serious money for that, and so I don't think that's ever going to happen. Not the coming in the money part, but the buying the Daytona part. Hopefully the coming in the money thing happens sometime. Anyway, yeah, so Daytona, probably not. So, you know, look, I'm willing to forgive the Speedmaster, its cam lever. I really am. Maybe I was being too picky yesterday, but you know, if I were a chronograph guy and I wanted one, I wouldn't let that stop me. You know, it would irk me a little bit, but it wouldn't you know, it wouldn't be a deal breaker. So yeah. But anyway, take care. Thanks for watching. Any chronograph owners out there? Any Daytona owners out there? Let me know. What do you guys think? And yeah, I'd love to hear about the buttons, say on a Daytona versus Speedmaster. In fact, I don't think I've ever laid hands on a Daytona. That's something I'm gonna have to rectify at some point. You know, just go to a used shop and check it out. Anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time. All right, so.